Hi, this is Ken Prather. Thank you for listening to our three-part series, Gold and Silver Recipes by GoldRealWealth. Like never before, some of the greatest, most respected financial minds of our time are in unison. They're telling us that the stock market's going to crash and that they're getting gold and silver to protect themselves. So we're not offering investment advice with our videos. Our videos are telling you what the top 5% of wealthy investors are doing, they're thinking, and so that you can take action to help your own situation. Epic times require immediate action. Golder Wealth is a part of this trend to get real physical gold, silver, palladium, platinum, precious metals in the hands of real people. So no longer is it just for bank heist movies, Fort Knox, the top 5% of investors. It's for real people as well. And our company are part of a group of companies that are trying to make it as easy to get gold and silver as it is to buy a stock online. They were talking about gold and silver recipes. These recipes that we'll talk about in a few minutes are potential game changers. They're game changers for your financial future, for your family's future. It could make you a hero for generations to come. It sounds dramatic, it sounds overdone, but these are the times we're living in, and inaction kills. And so we're gonna get into the recipes in a second after I go through an excerpt from Jim Rickards' book, The New Case for Gold. But we're at the tail end of a digital wealth cycle, and the next cycle, all we know is it's going to be different. It's going to be something different than stocks and other financial assets, sort of dominating and creating this what is now. It's been the greatest bull market in history in stocks, but has also created one of the largest, most dangerous, and in the future will be one of the most devastating financial bubbles in history. And so we're going to go through the background of why digital assets are so dangerous right now. And digital assets could be a stock, bond, mutual fund, exchange traded fund, an account balance in your bank account. But it's some of you may say that, well, I don't have all my assets in digital wealth. I'm protected. I have my home. Well, that's just as bad. Having your biggest asset as your home. Real estate's a bubble just like all those other bubbles we talked about. So here we go. We're going to read this passage from Jim Rickards' book about digital wealth. Digital wealth is subject to power outages, infrastructure and exchange collapses, hackers, and online theft. What good is $1 billion portfolio if it can be wiped out overnight? If the government shuts down the banks and reprograms the ATMs to limit you to $300 a day for gas and groceries, the fact that you have $100,000 in the bank is irrelevant. Government regulators will say $300 a day is more than enough for gas and groceries until further notice. This is exactly the scenario that played out in the Eurozone in Cyprus in 2013 and Greece in 2015. Savers should have physical gold as insurance against a bank freeze scenario. So we'll get into the first recipe here, gold as protection against stock market crash or your 401k crashing. So again, stocks, bonds, 401ks, an account balance in a bank account, those are all forms of digital wealth. Stocks, bonds, real estate, they're all in financial bubbles right now. And history tells us 100% of the time financial bubbles burst, and on average they're down 40% in the first year. Our enemies have incredible capabilities now to devastate us financially. They can shut down our power grid, they can disable the stock market. If the power goes out or the stock market gets shut down, when that stock market reopens, the Dow that could be down 10,000 points from where it is from where it started, and that 10,000 points may never come back. We're so conditioned with the greatest bull market in history that really goes back to 1982 that the stock market makes money over time and it always recovers. Well, in the next cycle, in the next phase, there is no guarantee that it's going to come back, and Ray Dalio has written about that. So if this is a scenario that's much more likely now than it was those of us used to how things were in the 80s and 90s, wouldn't you do something to protect yourself against it? Just because everybody in an index fund is gonna crash alongside you, that doesn't make the ride any less painful for you. This is a great opportunity to break from the crowd and do something heroic for your family. Gold and silver are one of the few assets that are not in a bubble. If the top 5% of investors are doing it, why wouldn't you consider it yourself? So that's recipe number one. The second recipe is using gold and silver as protection against the US dollar crash. Everybody's familiar with record budget deficits, record national debt. We hear about it every day. Another thing that American people really aren't that familiar with is how other nations are using or have major plans to sort of remove the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency and displace U.S. control over the financial system. The lifeblood of every economy right now is on Earth is to have U.S. dollars to buy oil, to hold U.S. dollars in their central banks, and using the SWIFT electronic payment system. And the U.S. controls that SWIFT system. And when they put their sanctions on Iran, that's what they did. They kicked Iran out of SWIFT, which becomes a major existential threat to to your economy, as Jim Rickards writes about. So we have both friends and foes working on serious plans to sort of supplant the U.S. dollar from dominating the world. One of the scenarios that's being talked about in informed circles right now, countries like China and Russia, they're accumulating gold at record levels. It's illegal to export gold out of China. China's one of the largest miners. All indications are that China will have the largest gold reserves in the world if they already don't. They keep their reserves secret. And what's being discussed? What if China comes out with a surprise announcement that they now own 20,000 tons of gold, making them the largest owner by a factor of over two, larger than the Eurozone, larger than US. And on top of that, they're introducing a cryptocurrency that's backed by gold. That scenario, if that cryptocurrency is real and effective, that could send the US dollar tumbling. And that's just one scenario. There's many, many different things that could happen, but there is a full-on effort to displace the dollar. The people, friends and foes alike, are sick of the way that we abuse that, the way that we punish them with sanctions and dominate the world system. And there's an expression, whoever owns the gold makes the decisions. So in the excerpt I read from Jim Rickards' book, he talked about what happened in Greece and Cyprus, but it's more real than ever that a bank account holder who has a bank that gets into trouble, and many of them will in the future because they're over-levered, they have too much debt. Many banks out there are zombie banks. That account holder will be forced into what's called a bail-in. And the bail-in is what happened in Greece and Cyprus, where it's not just the stockholders that participate, that take a haircut in any sort of restabilization of a bank. It's not just the bondholders that take a haircut, but it's also the account holders, the everyday customers that have accounts at that bank. They are going to see part of their account balance robbed from them, taken from them in order to shore up that bank. It's called a bail-in. Everybody needs to be aware of it. It's insidious, it's real, and the G20 ratified it in 2014 as the official way to take care of bank failures in the future, globally, not just in Greece and Cyprus. So we talk about three major epic dynamics that are going on. They're so major and epic, it's hard for us to imagine because we really haven't felt that yet. Times seem to be good. They're still pumping air into the corpse with the Fed money pumping scheme, and so our lives aren't affected. We still see supposedly good job unemployment numbers. We still see record high stock prices, so we don't feel the urgency. But when some of these conditions happen, again, gold and silver are one of the most important answers to protect yourself. And when these scenarios, when these situations play out, you're not going to be able to get gold and silver. You're not going to be able to get a gold dealer to call you back, especially if you're a new customer. And the supply chain for gold is already very tight. So you have to do these things now before the crisis, because in the crisis things are going to be allocated out. It's going to be very hard to get it unless you're a huge customer. So if you go to Gold Real Wealth, if you go to the Learn More or Get Started pages of GoldRealWealth.com, you can see how it's easier than ever to get started as a precious metals investor. It, it's the platform we use makes it as easy to buy gold and silver as it is to buy a stock online. You can open an account in 5 minutes. You can fund your account with an electronic funds transfer from your bank, a wire, a check, or a credit card. And then once that account is funded on the platform, it's extremely easy. With a few click of a buttons, you can buy the precious metals. And again, this is making it easier than ever for the individual investor to get access. But not just on this platform, you're not just buying the assets, you're not just buying precious metals. It also, all online, gives you the ability to choose where those assets are stored. People can have those delivered to them, or they have access to professional vaults run by the biggest names in security, Brinks, Loomis. They have access to these professional storage vaults that are around the US, but also available in 6 different countries. So when you're there purchasing that metal and you want storage, you're also making a decision if you want to hold those assets in the US, do you want to hold those in Singapore, Switzerland, London, Sydney, just as an example. So it's really a powerful thing. You can be this worldwide owner of precious metals and feel like you're a big deal, and you're certainly cutting away from the 95% there that are going to get crushed in the next crisis. So that's the end of part 1 of our gold and silver recipes. Please stick around for parts 2 and 3. We're just getting started with these recipes. Any one of the 9 that we're going to talk about could be a game changer for your family. Thank you for listening.